I think it's still playing. Is this thing on? Is this thing recording? Hey, you guys, it's your girl, DAZZLE, and I'm back for a live tarot reading and a conversation. So please like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I upload and when I go live. And if you would like to book a private reading, all you have to do is look into the description box. Everything is down there. My email, my price range, and what I do and how I get down. So, without further ado, please like as you come in. And everything I say is all alleged for entertainment purposes when I do the reading. But a lot of this actually, for the most part, is just facts that has happened. All right. So, if you guys are here today, you guys know that I've gotten basically inspired to do a reading on Gaddafi, right? So if you guys don't know who Gaddafi is, Gaddafi was basically, what is his name? Muammar Gaddafi. He was basically, what was I going to say? I wanted to make sure I said everything I said correctly. He was basically a Libyan revolutionary, a politician, and a political theorist, right? And he ruled over Libya between 1969 and 2011, okay? He was born in Libya in June the 7th, 1942, and he was assassinated by rebel forces in Sirte, Libya in August 20th, 2011, right? So what inspired me was that basically I seen something on Instagram, and it was basically saying, and I posted it on my community wall, and it was basically saying that it was declassified emails revealed that NATO killed Gaddafi to stop Libyan creation of gold-backed currency, right? So pretty much the last speech that he did was, he basically said, in the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, for 40 years, or was it longer, I can't remember, I did all I could do to give people houses, hospitals, schools, and when they were hungry, I gave them food. I even made Benghazi into farmland from the desert. I stood up to attacks from the cowboy Ronald Reagan when he killed my adopted orphan daughter. He was trying to kill me. Instead, he killed that poor innocent child. Then I helped my brothers and sisters from Africa with money for the African Union. I did all I could do to help people understand the concept of real democracy, where People's Committee ran our country. But that was never enough. As some told me, even people who had 10-room homes, new suits, and furniture were never satisfied. As selfish as they were, they wanted more. They told Americans and other visitors that they needed democracy and freedom, never realizing it was a cutthroat system where the biggest dogs eat the rest. But they were enchanted with those words, never realizing that in America, there was no free medicine, no free hospitals, no free housing, no free education, and no free food, except when people had to beg or go to long lines to get soup. No matter what I did, it was never enough for some, but for others, they knew I was the son of Gamal Abdel Nasser, the only true Arab and Muslim leader we've had since Salah el-Din, when he claimed the Suez Canal for his people, as I claimed Libya for my people. It was his footsteps I tried to follow to keep my people free from colonial domination, from thieves who would steal from us. Now I'm under attack by the biggest force in military history. My little African son, Obama, wants to kill me, to take away the freedom of our country, to take away our free housing, our free medicine, our free education, our free food, and replace it with American-style thievery called capitalism. But all of us in the third world know what that means. It means corporations run the country, run the world, and the people suffer. Okay, so that was his last speech, right? And so to get an idea where he was coming from, because my initial thoughts was, how do I say this? My initial thoughts about Gaddafi was what I seen during the Arab Spring, when basically, the rebel forces, took over Libya and hunted Gaddafi down and overthrown the government and pretty much killed him and recorded it. You know what I'm saying? And the way they did his body was just terrible. So what I said on the post was basically the way they did Gaddafi was wrong. Yep, I said it. The inhumane acts they did to his body was wrong. I'm going to read on him today. I hope they don't ban me. So I hope they don't ban me, y'all. But I'm going to talk about it. So in order to understand Gaddafi, we got to understand where Libya was at, right? So Libya isn't like North Africa, okay? And pretty much you do have to understand that at one point, Italy colonized Libya, North Africa, right? So they colonized Libya in the beginning of 1911 in September 28, right? The 28th of September, right? So basically, they colonized them. Native Libyans had to work to death in like poor unsanitary labor conditions. You had like basic resistant groups that wanted to stand up to the colonization of their country. They were being executed in public, okay? And basically, by the end of it, it was like over a third of Libyans were murdered by Italian colonizers. And it didn't end until 1943 when the Allies drove Italy out of Libya and North Africa, okay? So when I thought about that, I had to think about the fact of growing up in that type of society where colonizers have invaded your lands and basically bringing racism and classism while forcing your people into unsanitary labor camps to work to death. Your country's wealth that your people have attained, all stolen from you and your countrymen. And you have to live in poverty. And if you stand up for yourself, you are humiliated and murdered. To have to watch that type of brutality will transform your mind. So with that, it's the sense of, you don't want these invaders to come in. And it's all about that. And it's all about having like country pride. But to actually grow up in that will shape someone like Gaddafi. So I kind of want to do like just a reading on his upbringing. So let's see. Give me the energy. Give me the energies of Gaddafi's childhood upbringing. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Okay, so I think that a lot of it is wands, though. First of all, let's be more technical. Gaddafi was a Gemini, okay? So, and fun fact, most of his kids were Geminis, right? So, it lets you know something, but he was like a June Gemini. So, that's his energy in the back right here, this King of Swords, right? Upright. But it talked about expansion. So, when I think about Gaddafi, I wouldn't be surprised if he showed promise, or if he was someone that the family thought would make it far. I also feel like with the Two of Wands, I feel like he could have been someone who was into like his creativity. He was someone who was an actionist. He was someone who was a visionary, technically. And, like I said, he had promise. And I feel like as far as upbringing, I think it's connections too. So I don't know how that went. But as far as the King of Cups in the reverse, I kind of feel like, I don't know if he had a father figure that was like this, but I kind of feel like there's a lack of emotional maturity there, though. So, and it could be someone who can lie. It can be someone who can manipulate. But then if I think about it, others. But when I think about it, though, You're living in a place where, it's male dominated in a sense. And if you are living basically as poor and in a nomadic area, it will be like that. You have the male gets to act like that if he wants to, in that type of way. But I feel like he showed a lot of promise, a lot of strength, a lot of courage in his childhood, which makes sense. Because I think his family believed in him. And I think he was spoiled as well. Okay? In the sense of, like, he could have been the favorite son. Okay? In a sense. I don't know if he was the only son, but he was the favorite son. Right? But he did have challenges and issues. But to grow up in that was crazy. So, and then not only that, you got to think about the fact that after the Allies drove Italy out of Libya, King Idris was actually placed into power by Britain or whatever. So, and that was in like 1951. And he started out promising, but later started to sell Libyan lands to Americans and basically keeping the money and embezzling money from Libya, causing Libya to sink into poverty. And pretty soon, eventually, he's overthrown in a silent, bloodless coup in 1967. Right? So my thought is this, though. I feel like Africa has this certain type of cycle that goes on. And it really does seem like most of the time when people are electing their leaders or they're uplifting some type of king, some type of president, like everybody is all hopeful, everybody's excited. Their leader comes in with all these new ideas, and it's refreshing. They're making reforms, they're giving to the poor, they're doing this and they're doing that. And then at some point, eventually everything just go downhill or whatever for some reason. And then all of a sudden you figure out they're embezzling from their country and they're hiding money, and they're selling land and they're selling gold and selling their resources to foreigners and things. And the only person who's getting paid is the president or the king and his family. And then you think about it, how they start to get paranoid because of the deeds that they're doing. And then all of a sudden, they start committing atrocities and crimes against humanity, right? Which leads to overthrowing the government, a coup happening. It's either they go into exile or they get murdered, assassinated, and then the cycle goes all the way over again. So it's a vicious cycle that I noticed in Africa that was happening. And to be fair, ancient Greece and Rome and stuff, Macedonia and stuff like that, they had things like that going on. They was family members. It was family members murdering family members, right? So for some reason, positions of power corrupt everybody for some reason, right? And I think a lot of times, it corrupts everybody because I think it's because of the person. Sometimes I feel like these leaders in Africa, I feel like they don't come from money. They come from very humble beginnings, like poverty and stuff like that. So when they get in these positions, it's kind of easy to be swayed by what they see as far as what they can obtain. And it's very easy to embezzle this money, and line your own pockets. So it's the integrity that they're missing for some reason. And so that's why you have things like and then it's the cruelty. And a lot of times, they're showing cruelty because they've been brought up in that type of environment where it's normal to see someone get shot, and it's normal to see somebody get hurt and stuff like that, executed. So, and then not only that, look at their prison systems. Their prison systems, they will torture you. And torture has been ingrained in prison punishment. So it's normal for them to do these things. It's like I don't know. I think it's just like the conscious awareness, like, isn't there yet, or to be more humane. But anyway, But that's how I kind of feel. Like, I just feel like it's a cycle. And you've seen it with King Idris in Libya. Okay? And then you have people like Gaddafi who came into power after King Idris. And initially, he was good. Initially, nobody really thought twice about him ruling. They welcomed him in. It was a silent, bloodless coup. The king was in like Turkey getting surgery. So I'm like, okay, everything is okay at first, right? But then comes the problem. I'm going to say the good things that happened first, all right? So basically, Gaddafi basically gave money to the poor. He made education free for Libya, made hospitals free and things like that, which he did. He nationalized key assets such as petroleum production. He brought clean water and irrigation ditches to the nomadic populace. He made farmland. He did a lot of good things, right? And even down to which is alleged because we didn't know until, like I said, it was messages surfaced because Hillary Clinton emails were leaked to the public, and they was in like the form of memos, and it was from Sidney Blumenthal at the time, which was basically her close friend and also employed by the nonprofit Clinton Foundation. Okay. So basically, it's no proof for this, but one of his good deeds allegedly was going to use 143 tons of gold and a similar amount of silver that was accumulated before the rebellion, and was going to be used to establish a Pan-African currency based on the Libyan golden dinar. Okay, so he was going to do all that good stuff, right? Also, he allowed in, what was that, 1988, after he did all some other stuff and he went back good, he started like allowing capitalism back into Libya. He freed political prisoners. And, for Libyans, when he first came in, he pushed the Italians and the Jewish people out, which they been had an issue with. So they liked him for that, right? But then you had the bad things he did, right? Because for some reason it goes bad. Right? And it's like that Gemini trait. You got a good side and the bad side, apparently, right? So then you can say this was good, but it was also bad when he kicked out Italian colonists who were descendants of Italian colonists. So it's like my great grandma could have, or my grandmother or my grandfather could have been colonizers, but not me. I'm just born here. Right? And I'm born here and I'm like 20 and you're in power now. So now you told me I have to be in exile, but before I go, I have to go to the graveyard and dig up my great grandfather, my grandfather, and whoever else that was born, that was there colonizing and died on that land. I have to dig them up and take them with me. So that's crazy. That's a bad thing. And basically also kicked out the Jewish people. And it's always the Jews, for some reason, that Arabs got a problem with. But he did encourage and funded terrorist groups, though. He did do that. And he funded extremist groups. Now, the Black Panther Party that they said was an extremist group. Well, he funded them with guns. Now, hey, I'm all for Black power and stuff, but also you funneling guns, though. Yeah, like I know what it led to now. At first it's about, empowering African Americans, but then it turned into, when it comes to guns, it turned into us killing each other, right? So, boom, you had that going on, and you had the fact that if you look at like some documentaries about like Chicago gangs, he was funding one of those gangs or whatever, right? So that's crazy. Didn't know that, right? And also, if y'all don't know, he was friends with Nelson Mandela, and he was funding the NAC, which is led by Nelson Mandela. And he started banning music and concerts and cinemas and everything else like that. And he basically deemed he deemed music basically as Western imperialism. So, you had to burn everything, right? Burn all your instruments. So also he started broadcasting mass executions day and night on TV. And he gave like a speech that all the Libyans living, abroad, they were like dogs, stray dogs, and they was going to be hunted down. What else he did? He started funding groups like in 1984. Like he funded a group that basically sprayed machine gun fire into like protesters at Libya at the Libyan embassy in London, and basically wounding 11 and killing a police officer. And then in December 1985, now this is like for 3 years, so something happened with him between 1984 and 1988, right? So I mean, on and off, right? So basically in 1985 in December, he funded another terrorist group that targeted Rome and Vienna airports, and basically they were doing mass shootings over there. Then he funded another group in 1986. Not funded a group. He bombed a plane. Okay, so that was like, no. Let me get it right. No, he bombed the Berlin nightclub, killing 2 American soldiers. But when he did that, hey, just coming in now, I remember him well, was always on the news growing up until his death. Yeah. And it's interesting though. A lot of stuff he was doing, like it's like a dual nature. Like he was doing a lot of good things, but then he was doing a lot of atrocities. So dictators always end up not well. The same with Saddam Hussein. Let me see though what else he did though. Like basically when he bombed that Berlin nightclub that killed 2 American soldiers, all that stuff escalating. That's when Ronald Reagan decided that he was going to authorize airstrike bombing runs, and basically, that's it was for to kill Gaddafi, but they didn't get Gaddafi. They ended up getting his daughter, his adopted daughter, and that's how she died. So he was cool for a second, then came back and put a bomb on the Pan Am Flight 103, and he killed like 259 people, plus the 11 people after the plane crash, because the wreckage and the strap metal and stuff went everywhere, and they killed 11 more people. And then while they trying to figure out who did it, even though it was Libya and it took them like 2 years, basically he ended up bombing another plane, the French operated UTA 772, and that one killed like 170 people, right? So all this bombing and stuff that he was doing, that's why, the funding terrorists and everything else like that, that's when the UN like had enough, right? And they put like real heavy sanctions on him and isolated him. He isolated himself by doing all that, but it basically isolated him from the world, right? So that's when he started doing the worst stuff. But before I even get into this reading though, about this part, the problem with him is that he had made this book, right, about his philosophy, his political philosophy, and it was called the Green Book. And basically it's kind of like a Gemini writing down all their thoughts. So that's what the book was. You said very cunning and charming. Yet you knew he was up to no good. But the book was like the Green Book. It's a famous Green Book. And basically it's about his philosophies, his political philosophies. But like I said, it's like a Gemini. It could be like putting all your thoughts into one book. And so to everyone else, it's very confusing and non-cohesive and whimsical and stuff like that. And basically it was like this mixture of utopianism, Arab nationalism, socialism, tribal values, xenophobia, and Islamism. Okay. So the book is crazy. But however, he declared Libya as in the Green Book as the prophesized Arab utopia. So Libya in the Arab world is prophesized as the utopia, as the perfect place that Allah has anointed and stuff like that. And the Green Book also prophesies that other Arab countries, and other countries would be so jealous of the Arab utopia that they would try to destroy it, right? So here's the problem. I want to know about this book because he lived by this book, and that's why a lot of the stuff he was doing, it was his philosophy mixed with his religion, right? So weird. So I just want to know, like, how did Gaddafi even come up with this philosophy, though? Because it was, but it was confusion. Like, let me see one. And why is he prophesizing that? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I know what that is. Okay, so here's the thing, though. Sure with these prophecies in the name of religion. But yeah, so it's like, all right, so you got the Knight of Swords right here in the reverse. This is somebody who's trying to force you to think how he thinks, right? So with any dictator or leader who wants to force people into one thought, his thought, that was that book and what it represented, right? And mind you, before he became who he became, he is no different than any revolutionary in his country, right? His country wanted a hero after the Italian colonization of their country. They wanted to have Libyan pride. There's no different than before. That's why Hitler became Hitler in Germany, because it's no different than when Germany, suffered embarrassment and their people wanted pride in their country. So for real, this was a tactic. This was forceful, right? But also it was methodical, right? This is all him in his Gemini mode, I believe. But however, here's the thing about this, though. Not everybody actually bought that, right? A lot of people in this country didn't buy the ideas or his philosophy. They thought it was crazy, right? But they're not going to tell him that, because if you tell him that, you're going to get executed. Real shit. But it's about coming together, because it's a lack of people coming together. So for him, this was his big idea to have Libyan pride, okay? So that's what it was, right? Even though it was whimsical, was it kind of like xenophobic? Yes. Was it socialist? Yes. But it was basically what he gathered from his knowledge, from what he was educated from what he grew up around in his religion and stuff like that. So I can't really be mad at his ideologies where that was your world, right? And then you're coming up as someone who wants to have pride. And then you also have to think about the fact that basically he modeled himself after someone else. After the what is his name? I gotta remember his name. He modeled himself after, I gotta remember who the damn name was. Yeah, it was this guy named in Egypt, President Nasser, right? That's who he modeled himself after. So in that sense, it gave him pride to see someone else, right? Like an Arab in power doing for the people and bringing back what the people need and pushing out colonizers, right? So the same way the Arab Spring brought in new ideas and people and young people wanted to fight for something, it's the same way Gaddafi was with Arab nationalism. Okay, that's the same thing that happened. So that's what it was. So for me, that's what happened in that area, and that's what he was doing in that sense. So he was trying to bring back pride. He was trying to bring back a sense of, country pride. So let me go and look right over here. What did I even stop at? Because I had all these notes. So I'm trying to do this with the notes because, to be honest with you, I did not want to come in this like not knowing like some facts, so I can know everything else. Because the fact is, if you don't know it, it's kind of like you don't know what he did and what he didn't do, right? So I do have to acknowledge the good things he did before I start acknowledging the bad and why certain things was happening, right? So a lot of it though, and like I said, a lot of it though was paranoia. And it goes back to what I was saying about this whole cycle, that countries go through for some reason. For some reason, you have a shitty government and, and the working class and the poor are very much so not getting anything and getting the shitty end of the stick. So they protest and they overthrow the government and they put someone else in there who they think, and for the most part, that person thinks that they're going to be great. And then they descend into whatever they descend to, and they end up stealing from their country. They end up committing horrible atrocities to their own country, and then they end up getting overthrown. So it's a vicious cycle, right? So my thing was, though, because you got so much stuff going on, because it's not like he was bad, but it's not like he was all the way good, because he started being bad and then he went back good, right? Because when they isolated him, when the UN gave sanctions and isolated him, after a while, he started talking to people like Nelson Mandela and stuff, and then he started doing the right thing again, right? And then at some point, he wanted to create a united Africa, right? And he had 200 kings, 200 leaders crown him the king of all kings, right? So you had that going on, right? And then you had the eccentric personality of him, whereas he was always getting cosmetic surgery because he always wanted to visually look good. And then you had the fact that it was a bit of ego and narcissism there. So that's what it looked like just on paper. So I just want to get some more energies about him that the public don't know. 1, 2, 3. Oh. Okay, so this is some energies that the public don't know right here. But I'm about to get to that. So then, y'all do have to know when he was in isolation, that's what all the bad things was happening, And we're going to ask those questions, because we want to know about, he had his all-female army. And basically they called them the Amazonian army. And they was his believe it or not, you said he was never seen as good, but believe it or not, now, politically in Libya, not too long ago, one of his sons ran for president and they were backing him. There was a lot of people backing him because they felt like the Arab Spring was a bad idea. So some people see him as good. He did do good by his country, but then he also did terrible by his country. So I don't know whether it was just to cover up the good, but the things to cover up the bad, but it's weird though. And it's kind of funny how us in America, it's like we listen to propaganda and we just assume that someone's bad, but then we also listen to propaganda and we assume that someone's good and it's all America's fault why they're not here. That's what we're about to get into. But I just had to get into little things that I found out about him. So that's why I was kind of shaky in the beginning, but now we here. Because I've been really writing stuff down and getting my little information about the political stuff and certain things that happen, so I can really get a grips. Okay, so what we don't know about Gaddafi is probably what you probably do know is the 3 of Cups in the reverse. So most of Gaddafi illnesses was because of overindulgent behaviors. Like if he ever got ill, that was the reason why. Okay. Number two, I think Gaddafi, and it makes sense, he was overindulgent, period. Like anything, like opulence, right? And it makes sense when you come from a place that is like you're poor, right? It's a nomad place, you're poor, you're in the desert. You go from that, and then you go from everything, you have everything you want, right? That makes sense with the Queen of Pentacles in the reverse. Also, I do feel like maybe there was a mother figure who was kind of around, right? I don't know if his mom had died before he became who he became, but there is a woman that he was around that could have made everybody miserable and always wanted money, always wanted something, wanted, overindulgent stuff. He was overindulgent. He learned this from this person that always wanted more. And he wasn't always who he said. He was not who he said he was either, though. So that's what he learned that from, though. But he wasn't who he said he was either with the Knight of Cups. That makes sense, though, because, again, these people get into power. And they say they're going to be one thing, and they end up being another. They end up doing exactly what the previous people of authority was doing, being cruel, being this, being that. And he was a womanizer, too, which makes sense on what I'm about to say. Also, he was nosy. He was always, I wouldn't be surprised if his son, because one of his sons was the leader, had a company, and it was about like cell phone communication and stuff like that. Like as far as getting, the internet and stuff like that, he ran that in Libya. So he was listening to people's conversations. He was somebody that asked around about people. I can say he was paranoid. I also feel like a lot of stuff went bad for him because of things he did. It came back. There was a lot of conflicts that he had. And it wasn't just outside conflicts. It was inner conflicts. And it was family conflicts. Okay? And to be honest, it's a lot of stuff that he wished he would not have done. And he felt like he had all this creative, things going on in his head that he really wanted to happen that never actually happened. But could have happened because he had all the space for it to happen. But however, wanting power for the sake of power never works out. So that's what I kind of feel like this is though. It's a lot of stuff he did when he was in exile that honestly, I'm gonna just tell y'all. So y'all ever notice how Muslim countries, I'm gonna just give you an example, right? Like Muslim countries, they can have like a prisoner of conscience, right? And they can be beating that prisoner's ass in jail. But when they come out, like when you do an interview and you're asking the representative of that country, are you torturing this person? They'll say, no, none of that is happening. None of that is happening. They lie. Muslim countries will lie. And you have intel of a political prisoner being hung upside down and beat. That's the type of stuff they do. Like, they would know you got a video of a political prisoner getting tortured, and they would still look in your face and lie to you. So, during the time he was exiled by the UN, and basically he was isolated, Libya was isolated from the world, he started doing things like having freezers, right? Having those walk-in freezers and stuff. Freezer sites where, anybody who was his opponent, he would have them killed, and then he would keep them in the freezer. And it was like hidden freezers all over Libya or something like that, right? And when they overthrew him, they found these locations, and basically it was some of his political enemies, rivals and stuff. Some of them bodies was like 20 years old, still frozen in the freezer. And he would come down there periodically and, touch the body. What was that about? 1, 2, 3. Oh, there we go. This motherfucker. Okay. Here's the issue. The King of Swords comes up again. The King of Swords also, they're not emotional. They're very analytical. They're kind of cold, and they're very decisive, and they're very calculated. And I kid you not, when I asked about when he go into them body and when he go into them freedoms and look into them, look at them bodies and touch the bodies, that's the body right there. So he would go there because it was things that he didn't want to let go. So it was like a trophy. So I would say maybe 5 in particular that were there that he really visited. That, might have even had him shook, right? Because, like, a lot of times, like, you're not going in no freezer. You're not hoarding no enemy body in the freezer and going every now and again to touch the body unless you felt like this person was a worthy opponent and it was a prize, like tribalism, right? So that's what it was. And people just blame him, even though they was underneath his rule, but people were actually giving him these bodies, right? Because, if I can get your opponent for you, I can get favored by you. I can be in your favor. So he rewarded those people. He definitely rewarded those people. And you was like, just like the MAGA cronies at Fox News, and just like the media in Russia, they have to appease to Putin. Yeah, like even down to the little boys, right? So there's a rumor, right, that he had little boys, like nice looking pretty boys, in cages in the basement underneath his palace's compound, right? And basically, like, he was doing like child trafficking and sex slaves, right? So I want to know about that. What's he doing there? And people today want to make this narrative that he wasn't like that, but he was doing that. Okay, when it comes to the freezers and the bodies, yes, it was. Okay, let me see. 1, 2, 3. Was he child trafficking children? Okay, I think he was. But this is someone with an image to uphold with the King of Wands. But the King of Wands is an entrepreneur. And trafficking is an entrepreneurship. So I think he was. Okay. And I think it was something that he did because there was money in it. And then there's the child in it, right? The Page of Pentacles. They had promise. There was a promise, a financial gain from these little boys. And yes. And it's something to do with some of them. Some of these little boys. I'm going to ask. Well, some of these little boys that were trafficked, were they his bastard sons? Because I'm gonna tell y'all why. Were they his bastard sons? 1, 2, 3. Abundance, let go, improving health. Hold on, y'all. Hey, girl, hey. Hey, you about ready?
Of course.
All right, so I got you.
gosh, that means your car's not drive, but I didn't have to.
All right.
It's not like it's on another street.
All right, got you.
Okay. Yeah, let me see what's popping
Yeah.
on my phone.
All right.
Alright.
Okay, so it said abundance initially, but I'm sitting here flipping. My bad, y'all. I had to make sure I got on the phone with my cousin. But it said abundance initially. So let me see. But we won't know that. This is top secret. Was there a bastard son in this situation that he did that to? 1, 2. Because I want to know because it's given that. 1, 2, 3. Reconsider. Don't stop. Ooh. Forgiveness. So it's something to do with that. But it's women too. It doesn't have to be his bastard son either, but it's something to do with that. So I think there was a bastard son involved in that too. So there were child sex rings. And also, like I said, he had this female army, right? So the female army, pretty much, they were all female. They were supposed to be like Amazonian, like they were supposed to be the most beautifulest of Africa. And they were his personal bodyguards, and they were supposed to be virgins. But however, he had soundproof. This man had soundproof chambers like brothels where he would force women that he would like see and he would pat them on the hand or whatever. He would just touch them, and then one of the other female army officers would come over and ask for her number or whatever like that, and they would force these women into these soundproof chambers where he would force them to have sex with either him, his sons, or one of his affiliates, right? And if he liked you and if you did a good job, you can be a part of the bodyguard. If you did not do a good job, you were killed. And then not only that, there was a scandal before that one of the Virgin Army women, Amazonian women, became pregnant. So what he did was in his basement, he made a clinic, right? Beside the brothel, a clinic for abortions. So if you got pregnant, you can get an abortion in his army, right? So let's see how true this was. Was Gaddafi out here having brothels that wanted to come out? Having brothels with these women that was a part of his personal bodyguard, his army. 1, 2, 3. That was supposed to be virgin. The 5 of Cups. The King of Pentacles in the reverse. Yes. Yes, and he was a grand musician. He was a manipulator. So, of course, he did. But, however, now here's what I do want to say about Gaddafi, too. When people cross over and get their life review, they can see where they did wrong at, right? So, this is regret. The 5 of Pentacles talks about regrets. The King of Pentacles, the 5 of Cups talk about regrets. But the King of Pentacles in the reverse, yes, this was a man who would do that. Okay. Very shady. He was doing shady things, all right? The Knight of Wands is in the reverse. This is player energy. So, yes, he was out there partaking in it, too. And like I said, he was very much manipulative. And he was doing those things, Puff Daddy ain't the only one doing stuff. So, that was crazy. But, what I really want to ask is about the currency. They're saying that NATO killed Gaddafi because he was trying to make a Pan-Africa, currency, right? And like I said, he had 143 tons of gold, right? Is that the reason why NATO funded the revolutionary group, the rebels, that basically assassinated Gaddafi and his family members? 1, 2, 3. The Page of Swords is in the reverse. Okay, so this is Gaddafi. Now, y'all, look, because we have to realize how long he's been gone. And he had his life review already. Gaddafi is talking about, because he's a Gemini. Yeah, I'm about to get to that too, because he's a Gemini, right? And you have the Lover's card right here, right? So when I'm asking, there's a few things I want to say. This talks about a person, like I said, it's a dual nature. He tried to do good things, but he was fucking evil. He was doing evil shit. Okay? Um, Honestly speaking, he crossed over already. So there is a disappointment in the morning in the life review that says, I know what I did wrong. If I can go back and do something different, I would. And a lot of things with this Wheel of Fortune, this is karma. And it's in the reverse. So this is things catching up with you, okay? So things coming back around again. So the things that you have done that you're not proud of comes back around, right? And you have the Hangman in the reverse. So the Hangman is basically in the reverse. It's like what you're doing and how you're doing it is not working out, and you have to see that. But I don't know if you want to see it or not. So the way he was doing things in his head, based on that green book and his thoughts of utopia, Libya being the utopia of the Arab world, and his philosophy and how he's doing things and what he's saying, all that together was wrong. So he got assassinated for the things that he did. Okay? And to make it so bad, the Page of Swords in the reverse in the back, it really talks about propaganda, lies. This person lies, deceptive, manipulative, gossip. And we have to look at that, right? Also, the problem is people think that history is told by the victors, right? Which is true. And, at some point, the people who are not victorious, they want to try again, right? And they want to place the person who was not victorious in a positive light in some type of way. So they have to have propaganda, right? And if you look at it now, after the Arab Spring, which was a lot, like the Arab Spring affected so many Arab countries and overthrown so many governments. And really, the Arab Spring in itself, it was supposed to be something good. It started out good, just like how they felt, what was it, Arab nationalism when that first started, right? It started out good with all this promise, and then it got ugly. And then in some countries, it got hijacked, like by ISIS and different terrorist groups and stuff. So it turned into something different. You know what I'm saying? And different fractions and stuff like that. So it turned into something different. What started as let me go ahead and say it. What started in December 2010, with a produce vendor named Muhammad Bouazizi that set himself on fire, right, in protest. It started from that, and then it turned into something else in some countries, right? So you had that going on, and the goal is always about democracy, economic freedom, employment, human rights, reforms, free election, and regime change, right? So it starts from that, and then it ends up doing something else, right? And basically, what did I want to look up? I looked up something so I can tell y'all what it was. Okay, my cousin said she's driving. Okay, let me just tell her, okay. Okay. So, and I looked it up and I wanted to see what it was about. So basically, whoa. So when the Arab Spring happened, you already know what it was about. It was about all that. But, you know, that was what it was about. But then it turned into, let me take this out. But then it turns into something else. It turns into, with the methods like civil disobedience, civil resistance, it turns into civil war. You have demonstrations, then you have insurgency, internet activism, media activism. You got mutiny, protest camps, rebellion, revolution, riots, self-immolation. That means setting yourself on fire. Silent protest, sit-in, strike action, urban warfare. And basically, as a result, though, let's see. In Tunisia, when it first started, their president basically got exiled, and the government was overthrown. The government was overthrown in Egypt. Libya, the government was overthrown. Yemen, the government was overthrown. Syria, it was a full-scale civil war. Armed rebellion and full-scale civil war. That's a lot. Bahrain, I did a reading on Bahrain before. And Bahrain, it was supposed to be one of those countries that it was overthrown. But no, their stuff got crushed. And it was led by the Saudi Arabia intervention, right? But Bahrain, but look, like Kuwait, Lebanon, and Oman and stuff, a lot of stuff, changed up for them. So, but the problem is after the fact, because of so many other people and so many other motives came into some stuff, the working class itself was ignored again. So now some of these countries are worse off than they were. So a lot of people started to feel like, well, maybe the Arab Spring shouldn't happen and should not have happened. And maybe our former leader was not that bad of a leader. So that's how they kind of feel. Some people kind of feel about Gaddafi right now, to the point that his son, what is his name? Oh yeah, what is this? Yeah, it's al-Sadi Gaddafi. He was trying to run for president, and a lot of people was going to actually vote for him, even though most of his sons actually died, and other sons were exiled, and he had fled. Some of them got captured, tortured, and then released. His daughter fled and stuff like that. It was a whole bunch of stuff. But that was the real questions I had, though. So I feel like it was going to happen. Maybe it was talks, but nothing was put in stone. So maybe it was an ideology that was going to happen. Because Hillary Clinton wouldn't have got that memo unless it was some truth to it. But that's not why he got killed. So he got killed because of the stuff that he did. If you make your people mad and they turn on you, they will kill you. And a lot of the reason why I felt like he got done wrong was how it happened and what it looked like. And the fact that it was on camera. And I was like, it was really inhumane. But then when you think about some of the inhumane things that he did, I understand. But I'm like, well, me, I'm not used to seeing that type of craziness, And of course, most people are not. They're not used to seeing dead bodies all the time, with gunshot wounds and stuff. Like, they actually put him by the end of it because they sodomized him with a bayonet, and then they shot him in the head, and then they played with his body like a Muppet. And then by the end of after them playing with his body and stuff in the back of the truck, then they sat there and put him in the freezer with his son that they captured and killed as well. And they left him on display. So the same way his enemies got put on display is the same way he got put on display. Yeah, so it's karma. And to be honest with you, Gaddafi on the other side feel like it's karma. Yeah. But that's what that is. But as far as the gold, let's get back to the questions with the gold. So that's not the reason he was killed. So, but was he going to do that though? But was it an opportunity to turn the currency? But the whole time, Gaddafi also wanted to unify Africa with one ruler, and he wanted to be the only ruler like Napoleon. Okay, so let's not forget that. So, because he wanted to be king of all kings. So if he wanted to have a currency, I wonder if that's because he wanted to unify the whole of North Africa and Africa and make himself the only ruler. So let me see. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. Was that the case? Yeah, he was coming in with this currency. That was absolutely right. Coming in with a currency. And I feel like the 8 of Swords, though, this is somebody with self-limiting thoughts, though. I think he wanted to. And with the High Priestess, I mean, it's some things that we never knew and we won't know. Okay? But do I think he wanted to be the star of Africa? Yes, he wanted to be the King of Kings. And I think the currency part was going to play into the unification part, and that means we would have our own currency. And guess who would be on the dinar? Guess who face would have been on there? Him. But that's what it was, though. Definitely that. But it just didn't happen like that, unfortunately. But that's what I got, though. So how y'all feel about that? It was a good little hour. I gave y'all a little bit. But honestly, like, I can tell y'all, like, I like looking up stuff. I like history. I like looking at, like, different things, like monarchies and regimes and things like that. And you can learn a lot from his regime and where it comes from. Because, like I said, it comes from people who have been oppressed. Okay, and they have all these great ideas, and you have these young people. Like Gaddafi was young when he got out of school, and he went with his friends, and they joined the military academy, and climbed the ranks, and then became, did what he did. They're coming from this oppression. They feel like they can do something different. They feel real good about making a change. And what happens is they get into power and they realize that, with power comes discernment, responsibility. You have to be trustworthy and you can't let it get to your head. And I do think that, like, the fact that they had to do it the bloody way, it becomes a little bit inhumane. So then they have this inhumane grasp or idea of what things should be. You said, yet now I want to shift to a better energy. Yeah, it was interesting with what you researched on and looking at the cards, going in more details rather than hearing from a history channel. Yeah, but it was like, it just becomes a lesson though. And it's like, wow. But I do find it funny that most of his children were Geminis as well as him. And so I just know he had a lot of ideas going on. And and then the closest of his children who were close to him, that was inside his regime, they were Geminis. And they were assassinated as well. But, they were more so like their dad. Yeah, most of the dictators do end up dying in an inhumane way. Yeah. Like, look at Mussolini. Him and his lover, they got captured and shot and hung upside down for the world to see. You got that. The only thing was with Hitler, he said, well, you ain't about to get me. I'm going to kill myself. Because if y'all get me, y'all going to do something worse. So Hitler, who else? But most of these people, but it's funny that I'm looking at my my baby. But But yeah, President Obama on death of Osama bin Laden. Yeah, Osama bin Laden wasn't even able to be buried in a country. No country wanted his body, so they had to have a sea burial. Putin may die from his disease. Yeah, his end of life is not turning out well. No, and I think a lot of it is paranoia. You do enough stuff to people, you get paranoid. And that actually, when you are uncomfortable, you feel on edge, you are paranoid to that point, and you can't sleep good at night. That's when diseases do come. That's when you do make yourself sick. And I do think that a lot of the things that Gaddafi, if he had illnesses, a lot of it came on because of his behaviors. So a lot of that happened. But yeah, it just goes to show, like, when we have all these protesters and things like that, like, people want uprisings, people want change and all this other stuff, but it gets thwarted, or it gets manipulated, and then it gets agenda based, and then by the time you get these changes, these are never the changes that we actually asked for, and the working class is still hurting while the rich are still rich. So he said, mafia bosses, no brainer, are either way, they go to jail. I mean, at this point, I don't mean, like, no, I don't really feel like Ashe even made that post, because that was a misinformative post. It's misinformation. That's not why he got killed. That's not why at all. You do something crazy to people, they gonna get you. That's the only thing. That's what happened. You mistreated your country, and a lot of it he's not proud of. But what I can tell y'all is that what I'm noticing about doing readings about people who passed on, a lot of them that had a life review, and a lot of them are very, very, very apologetic about the things that they have done, but they understand how it shifted society. If you guys ever notice, they can understand that they didn't do the right thing. Like, and then people would think that, there's a heaven and hell. But I don't think Gaddafi in hell, because I'm trying to figure out that's the crazy part, right? But see, if you would think about another religion, they might think that he in hell. I don't know. But let's see. I am what? An hour and 8. This is interesting in regard of the life review part, because let me ask this: we judge yet not God. Yeah, because the life review part, like, when I'm reading on Gaddafi, like, he looked like it feel like you keep taking ownership and have some type of disappointment or regret about the things that has happened and about how you hurt your people. So I do think that he had his life review. But he done good too. So, I mean, hey, he done horrible stuff. Yes, he had his life review. So he's done horrible things, but I mean, in this world, and maybe there's a lesson to learn from that. And, everybody comes to learn the lesson and to help humanity in some type of way. So however that was for him, that's what that was for him. And if we think about it, it's history. There'll never be another Gaddafi, I'll tell you that much. I mean, it would be, but not like him. Because, I don't know. Different, the same, but different. Okay? But that's what I got, y'all. It was interesting. It was a nice little history report with a little tarot. So I'm about to roll, y'all. I love y'all for real. My cousin about to come up here and visit me. And, oh yeah. Plus, if there's any such thing as reincarnation, what if we are good now, yet in our past not as good? That's another thing. You have souls that come with a soul contract to do ain't shit. And then when they leave, they get their night. You surprised me with this title. Have fun with your family tonight. Yeah, girl, I meant to tell you, girl. So, what can I say? Like, I am actually happy that you know how you inspire people, and you don't know you inspire them. So one day my cousin came over, right? Called me out of left field, told me how I inspired her based on the reading I did for her. I inspired her to be a tarot reader as well and to tap into her intuitive gifts. And she came to my house with a big bag full of oracle decks and tarot decks and dumped them all on the table and was like, look. And I said, oh my goodness, what the hell you been doing? What you been into? And she was showing me how she read and stuff. She was excited about it. So tonight she's supposed to be coming over because she wants me to be her mentor. She came to me. I didn't come to her. Yeah, and to use it for good too. So, because right now she goes fast. She's like, I'm a reader. I mean, I can go fast, but she be like this. It's like somebody da 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 da, and somebody da 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 da, and she be fast, but she's accurate. But she just be fast, and I was like, but I don't know. So I'm gonna see how she read. I'm gonna use the I have a big, wider weight tarot deck, the gigantic size. So I'm gonna make her use that, and I'm gonna see what she come up with. You know, put a little whatever in it. You know, but that's what I got for you guys. I'm going, y'all. This was fun, and I'm gonna see y'all later. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll be notified of when I upload and when I go live. And if you would like to book a private reading, go ahead and look into the description box. Oh, you said trial and error. It took you years, decades. Yeah, it takes that long sometimes. That's why I'm actually happy to see what she can do. And take care, y'all. I love y'all for real. Peace.